My name is Nevada Conley, and I'm your ambassador for Nevada. And today we are with Amber, and she's actually my bookkeeper for my signing service. And so she's a bookkeeper, tax professional. And so she graciously agreed to meet with us today and go over some commonly asked questions, especially for notaries and signing agents, and just give us some like tips and tricks and stuff. So Amber, why don't you introduce yourself and just kind of let everybody know what you do and all that.
I am Amber Mailer, and as Nevada said, I am a bookkeeper and a tax professional, but I'm also a notary. So I've been in the notary space for many gazillions of years, off and on with loan signings and other type of just using my commission for other things. Like I worked for the state of Nevada, so I had a commission that I needed to use for that and various things like that. But one of the things about notary bookkeeping is that we have really great rules and write-offs, and it's very important that everybody knows what those are and can, because a lot of tax professionals out there in the world who have never had a notary who's their client, who has a notary business, they have no idea that our notarial acts are not subject to self-employment tax. I actually used to work for a tax professional who had been in business, CPA who'd been in business for 40 years. And when I started my loan signings and notary business outside of the office, I told him, I said, my notarial acts are not subject to self-employment tax because he used to do my taxes so we had a whole conversation about that, and he's like, that's not true. And I said, it's absolutely true. And I had to show him the tax code and he'd been doing it for 40 years. He just never had a notary as a client. So they just don't know. And you can only know what you know, right? So if you've never come across something, you have to find out the information. So I'm here to kind of go over a few things. The first thing is if I don't know where you guys are in your notary journey, I don't know where you are in your business setup. One thing I'm going to recommend to every single notary on the planet, please utilize Notary Gadget, Notary Assist, the accounting side of Notary Every Day, something that is a bookkeeping software geared specifically towards notaries because it does break out your individual notarial acts for you so you know which parts are not subject to self-employment tax and which parts of your income are. They also all keep track of your mileage because that's going to be your number one biggest write-off as a mobile notary is the mileage. In 25, the mileage rate was 70 cents per mile. I don't know what it's going up to yet for 26. I just honestly haven't looked. But it goes up every single year, and that is your number one biggest write-off. Even though, like, let's pretend uh you make $100 on a signing and you have to travel 20 miles. That's $14 that you get to write off, but it may not have cost you $14 to you know, in the gas that you used and that kind of stuff. So it's important that you guys write that stuff off because that's more money in your pocket that's just not taxable. When it's a write-off, that just means it's not taxable. It comes off your taxable income. I don't know if Nevada, you can allow me to share a document, but I don't know how, or if I have to send it to you to share it or what you want to do.
Um,
But I put together a little thing that we can email to everybody when we're done. Um, but it just has some simplified business expenses that everyone should be taking advantage of, as well as like their home office. One thing to know about home office, and this is important, your dining room table is not a home office. Your home office is a room that is only dedicated to your workspace. And it's not the 2-year-old's room. It's not whatever. It's just a working office. And the simplified home office deduction is $5 per square foot. So in my house, your tax preparer will always need to know the full square footage of your home as well as the square footage of the room in which you work in. I have a 150 square foot room that is my office, so I get to write off $5 times 150. What is that? My brain stopped working. $750. But and there's going to be people out there all the time who tell you, "Oh no, you get to write off your rent and you get to write off all this and you get to write off all that." You don't. You only ever get to write off if you're going to take actual expenses like that. It goes based on that same square footage and what percentage that is of your home. For example, my house is 1,800 square feet. 150 is less than 10% of my house, so less than 10% of my utilities would be able to be written off. I own my house, so rent is not even counted in there, only um, the interest
Amber, I
I
made
pay.
you the host. You should
Oh,
be able to share now.
okay. Let's see. Okay, cool beans. Okay. So I always do that and then I can't see that. Okay. So this is just a simplified notary business expense list. And I told you, like I said, we can email this out to everybody so you have it. But vehicle and travel, so mileage is number one. If you guys are in an area where you have parking or tolls, those are separate and definitely a tax write-off. So you want to keep those things um, tracking, especially like in your notary gadgets, or Notary Assist is a great place for it. If you wash your car, and that kind of thing, travel for signings. If you had to go to, I don't know if most of you guys are in Vegas, but if you had to drive to Pahrump, and something happened. I don't know. You had to stay in a motel in Pahrump because it was an 11 p.m. signing and you didn't want to drive back to Vegas. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. Then you keep track of all those travel expenses. Office and supplies, printer, toner, paper, notary journals, stamps, seals, any office furniture or supplies that you buy, paper clips, envelopes, file folders, all of those things are tax write-offs. So you definitely want to be entering those things as well as an expense in your notary gadget or notary assist. Things like cell phone or a portion of your cell phone. If you have a family of four on your cell phone bill and your cell phone bill is $250 every month, you cannot write that whole thing off. You get to write off one phone line and it can never be the main phone line. So, um, we happen to have four phones on our phone line. Mine is the number one phone. My main bill is like 160 and then everybody is $35 a month after that on top of my bill. So I just write off one of those phones at $35 a month. You can never write off the main phone. Internet, Wi-Fi, you can write that off. If you happen to buy a laptop or a tablet, printer, scanner, any of those things, all of those things are considered expenses. Anything under $2,500 for one item, you take the entire expense in the year that you buy it. It's not you don't want to depreciate that. That's a whole big giant rigmarole. That's for bigger things. Um, if you pay for any RON platforms, RON fees, for stamping, witness fees, all of that kind of stuff, you can write off all of that. Your E&O insurance, our surety bonds, or any state filing fees. Everyone should have a Nevada state business license to be in business in the state of Nevada. Um, that is required. It's just required. I don't, and in some counties and cities, they want you to have one as well, but it just depends on where you're at. But the state license is required and it's $200 a year. If you were to get an LLC, it would be $450 a year. $350 a year, $450 the first year. Sorry about that. business cards, website hosting, social media ads, Canvas subscriptions, Adobe subscriptions, the $2.99 a month if you pay that to signing order, or whatever. All of those things are tax write-offs. And if you're utilizing Notary Gadget or Notary Assist, you can create a recurring monthly expense in there for like Adobe 19.99, E&O insurance, $38, whatever it is. Just create a monthly recurring payment so you don't have to think about it and it just goes right in there. And then other things like paying a tax preparer, if you pay a bookkeeper, an attorney, a payroll service, any of those things, those are all um, write-offs and considered business expenses. Things like um, well, I already talked about all that shipping and signing platforms and all that other stuff. And then the home office deduction, I talked about that. Now, subcontractor payments, if you are paying anybody, that includes witnesses. If you have like one buddy that you hire to go do all your witnesses with you, and you happen to pay them more than $600 in a year, you have to file a 1099 for them. Um, These are some annual tax checklist things for notary business owners. Um, just information, name, business name. If you want to get an EIN, you don't have to get an EIN. You can be a sole proprietor just under your social security number, or you can be a sole proprietor under an EIN. Um, Business address, commission details. These are things that you would like give to your tax preparer if you're not doing your own taxes. All of the 1099 NECs that you received. And if you happen to have an outside job, any W-2s, any other income that comes in, if you're filing joint with a spouse, all your dependent information, a prior year tax return is always great if you don't have one. Things like mileage logs, receipts for supplies, marketing. Nobody wants your receipts, just telling you. Tax preparers don't want a box of receipts. Don't give them that. That's why you need to keep everything in Notary Gadget or Notary Every Day and print a profit and loss sheet. Um, what else? This is if for 1099s, if you happen to pay somebody more than $600, there are penalties if you do not file it in a timely fashion. They have to be filed before January 31st. Um, this is a chart of accounts, like if you were to be keeping a chart of accounts in your notary gadget, so you could create different things like what different kinds of income that come in, because you might not just do notary stuff, you might do apostilles, field inspections, fingerprinting, all of those other things, admin expenses, technology, so on. This is how you can create your chart of accounts in Notary Gadget. And then so the next few things have to do with some other like planning for the year and projections and cost analysis. But um, I know Nevada sent me a thing of a bunch of questions. But if we want to go over some of those, or if we want to just let's go over those first, and then let's go ask anyone else if they have questions. Because I know I talk really fast. I apologize. So.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, you did talk about some of them, but like the most common tax mistakes you see notaries and loan signing agents make. I know you touched on like the, not writing off your notarial acts. Is there anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, so I have seen a lot of notaries who will put in all of their vehicle expenses, for an example. You can only take one or the other. You don't get both. You do mileage or you do actual expenses, which is gas, interest on a car loan, um, did I say insurance? Yeah. Insurance, repairs, new tires, all those kind of things. But again, just like with the home office expense, it is a percentage. So if you drove 10,000 miles in your vehicle all year and, uh, you know, 5,000 of them were business miles, you only get to take 50% of all those expenses that you had. And mileage, most of the time, 99% of the time, mileage is going to like be more than
Totally.
the actual expenses. So, and I've seen people who take both, and that you can't do that. And if you try, and if you think you're actually doing it, you're not. Like if you're using a tax software like TurboTax and you put in all your actual expenses and then you go to the mileage screen, it's only going to take the higher of the two. But a lot of people try to tell me when I start doing their taxes, oh, I take all of this and just it's on my TurboTax. And I said, okay, let's look at last year's tax return. And I point out to them, I said, see, it only took one. It's only going to take the higher of everything. The same with the home office expense. If you're doing your own taxes or and using a tax software, it's only going to take the higher of the two. Um, Notarial acts are a big thing, and but I need for everyone to understand that when something is self-employment tax exempt. What self-employment tax is your Social Security and your Medicare. So if you become a notary and you are a notary for the next 10 to 15, 20 years, and you don't report anything as self-employment tax because of all your notarial acts, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot when it comes to Social Security and Medicare eligibility down the road. So you have to be careful about not reporting anything, but self-employment tax is 15.3% because if you were out there working for an employer somewhere, you as the employee would have 7.65 taken out of your paycheck and the employer pays the other 7.65 and you never even see that occur. But in total, it comes out to 15.3%. So it's one of those things to really monitor and be aware of. Not that it's not, I mean, it's great to not have to pay an additional 15% tax on, your income, but just know that it has repercussions down the road, depending on what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, perfect. And then, so what about what's important for notaries to understand about their like how their business structure affects their taxes? Is there anything you can talk about there?
So basically, anyone, whether you have an LLC, don't have an LLC, have an EIN, don't have an EIN, everyone, unless you are filing as an S corporation, is going to be filing on a Schedule C connected to their personal tax return as a sole proprietor. No matter what, even if you have an LLC, you're still a sole proprietor because the IRS calls it a disregarded entity unless you are filing as an S corporation. Now, you don't want to file as an S corporation until you are making a net profit, not the big number, but the number after all your expenses, a net profit of around $60,000 because in order to file as an S corporation, the IRS requires you to now be the employer and you to be the employee. So you have to put yourself on a payroll system. You have to pay payroll taxes to the IRS. So now you're paying that 7.65 in Social Security and Medicare to the IRS. It's also coming out of your paycheck of 7.65%. So you're not getting any of that tax benefit until after you're making about 60,000 net profit because you do have to pay yourself what the IRS deems as a reasonable wage, which is between 40 and 50% of your gross income. So, and you again are paying more in taxes and you don't get that. When you're a notary, because of the self-employment um, exemption, we already save that money, right? So the whole point of other businesses becoming S corporations is that they have a lot of income that would I otherwise be subject to 15.3% of self-employment tax if they were filing as a sole proprietor. But when they're filing as an S corporation, it becomes pass-through income and they don't have to pay that self-employment tax on it. But the thing with being a notary is we already don't have to pay it. So there's but if you become an S corp, now you have to follow the IRS rules of being on payroll and paying payroll taxes, signing up with an, unemployment, getting workers' comp, doing all those things, because that's all part of the rules of being an S corp. So I think out there on the internet, there's a lot of people who say, whether it be in the notary community or not the notary community, right? Just the internet in general. There's all these people who are like, get an LLC, get an EIN, get all this stuff. You don't get all this stuff. It all goes by your personal um information. But there's a lot of people out there who say, "Oh, we'll just file as S corp and then you save all this money." Well, they don't live in the notary world, so they don't know that we already do. So it actually ends up costing notaries more money to file as an S corporation than in taxes than it would if they just filed as a sole proprietor.
Yeah, that's good to know. And then I know you kind of touched on this already as well, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions notaries have about write-offs?
The biggest one I see, and this, by the way, I am a bookkeeper and a tax preparer for, well, I'm a tax preparer for over 100 notaries, but I am a bookkeeper for 12 signing services. So this is one thing, our meals. Um, Meals, you can only ever write off at 50%. So even if you stopped and went to Starbucks and had to pay 6.50 to sit down and do a signing in a Starbucks and they make you buy something and you have to pay 6.50, if you put that down under meals, you only get to write off 325 of that. Meals used to be something that was 100% tax write-off. It's not anymore. And people would put down meals uh, as like their lunch that day. Meals was never meant to be an individual person's meal, right? It's not your groceries, it's not any of that stuff. It's meant to be um, a meal that was eaten in conjunction with your business. If you had to drive 3 hours away, and be gone, and you're in another town and you get lunch, it's a tax write-off, but still, again, only at 50%. And but if you are at home and you order yourself Uber Eats, not a tax write-off. So um, that's the kind of misconceptions that there are out there is like you can just write off everything under the sun. You could try, and if you're ever audited, you're going to pay a whole lot of taxes and go through a whole lot of headache with the IRS in trying to explain all of those things and coming up with receipts for it all.
Yeah.
So,
What is
um,
the rule on receipts? Because I had somebody else tell me, she is also a bookkeeper, but she said you technically don't have to have a receipt for anything under $75.
so I personally tell my people keep every receipt for everything. Keep it. I don't want it as the tax preparer. I don't want it, but you keep it for your records so that if anything ever occurs, especially like an audit, you have it. Personally, me, I have a scanner. I'm a notary. I have a scanner. Once a month, if I have any paper receipts that I've, had to run out to Office Depot and get, and then I didn't have them email it to me or whatever. If I have paper receipts once a month, I grab my little stack, I scan them all, goes on my computer as this month's receipts. And then it's there and I have it. And that's a really a good thing to do because so many of these receipts from places, they fade and there's
Mhm.
nothing left.
Yeah.
Whatever those things are called, the heat print, whatever they're called. Um, so that's why I personally, I scan everything. I don't know any rule, Nevada, about
Okay.
it being $75 or less. Um, I have never heard that in 7 years, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? You only know
Mhm,
what you know. But
mhm,
I've never heard that. I keep every receipt. And uh, then of course any paper receipts I mean any emailed receipts I get for anything might be from Byberg, from my phone, whatever, they just go right into the folder. So
mhm, mhm. Yeah, perfect. And then I think you touched on this a little bit already. So for the notaries that are just starting out, you've already said that, I mean, they can just use their social security number. They don't really have to have much. I mean, they don't have to be an LLC. They
nope.
can just, do they have to get a sole proprietor or can they just do it under their name or how does
They,
that work?
they are a sole proprietor.
Yeah.
Just that there's nothing to go out and get. They are a sole proprietor. Whether it's their name, whether it's their whether if they want to get a DBA name, like if they don't want to use Amber Mailer,
Hmm.
right? They want to go out and use Mailer Books and Taxes. You have to get a DBA name through the state. So when you apply for your state business license, there's a spot for DBA name, and you have to put DBA name on there so that your business license is issued in that DBA name. Now it's you still use your social if you don't want to get an EIN. But if you were and then to get if you want to get an EIN, it's going to be under your personal name. It's not going to be under a business name. Um, though you can, because if you have a DBA, a legal DBA, you can use that EIN with your DBA. So if you're filling out your W-9s and you want to be, you know, notaryandfriends.com, whatever, and you just want to be something and you got an EIN under with your name and your DBA name, then you can put that on your W-9 form so that places can pay you out. But you can't just make up a name. You have to actually have a legal,
You have to file that with the state.
yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And then you said before too, like if you're thinking about switching to an S corp, you should wait until you're making a net income. So not like your gross income, which is everything, but net after all expenses, at
Net
least
profit.
60,000 a year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
and that's when it starts to become worth it for a notary.
Mhm.
Other places, I don't know, a pizza place might be the answer might be 30,000, but for us, we're already not paying self-employment tax
Yeah.
on 70% of the income we make. So
Okay. Perfect. And then are there any tax compliance items notaries should be aware of that they can overlook?
I would just say bookkeeping, 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 right? Like that is a compliance thing when you are in business is you need to have it somewhere, whether it's Notary
Mhm.
Gadget, Notary Assist, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, as long as there is some sort of bookkeeping that if you were ever audited, you have a record of the everything that came in. Because here's the thing, guys, you're gonna do signings for 100 different signing services. And you might only do one signing for Joe Schmo's signing service for $90. They're not going to issue you a 1099, but you need to claim that income and you might do 50 signings for Nevada's signing service. And you're going to make, $5,000 from her. And she's definitely going to issue you one because it's over $600. But all those little $90, $70, $50, $100 individual signings you do out there for different signing services, they don't have to issue you a 1099. And they're not gonna because it costs them money to issue 1099s. So, I mean, and they work with thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of notaries that they don't have to issue 1099s for. So it's important that you have a good tracking system of all your income, all your expenses, and then the documentation to back that up behind the scenes.
Yeah, perfect. Um, and then you did discuss that we're the self-employment tax you can write off your notarial fees. How I don't even do you like, I mean, okay, so like for me, I would tell my tax professional, but do you know, like, because I actually had, I've in the past, I've had them say, no, you can't do that. That's like your double whammy. And I didn't argue because I knew I've been told many times, but I didn't argue because I didn't know exactly what I was saying or what exactly it meant. Do you know, like, what would be like the corrective verbiage to tell your tax professional
This
about?
portion of my, yeah, this portion of my net income is not subject to self-employment tax because it was all derivative from notarial acts. Um, that's And if you use Notary Gadget or Notary Assist, it literally tells you right on it,
Tells you how many. Mhm.
this amount of your net income is subject to self-employment tax or is not subject to self-employment tax. I don't remember the verbiage on it, but
Mhm.
it actually says it right on there. And the way it works is this is the breakdown. Is everybody here is in Nevada, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we get to charge $15 per signature, not per stamp, per signature. So if you have a husband and wife who sign a document, that's $30, right? Those are your notarial act fees. You charge them this, we're talking about general notary work for just a sec because it's one document, okay? So you charged them $30 plus the $45 travel fee we're allowed to charge. 30 minimum there, 15, whatever. Okay. So 45, $75 you charge them. $30 of that $75 is not subject to self-employment tax. The $45 that you made for travel fees is subject to self-employment tax. So when you put it into Notary Gadget, it breaks out those things for you. It
Mhm.
separates the two. It keeps the income as a whole, but it separates the two into taxable, not taxable for self-employment tax, right? Okay, now let's say you've gone out and done a loan signing. It's a refinance. There's four documents that have to be notarized. You have a couple, so that's eight people, eight signatures. Um, so my brain stopped working. Eight times 15 is 120. Okay. You took that signing for 90 bucks. Okay. You went out, you did the refi, you accepted a fee of $90 from a signing service. Um, but you did $120 in notarial acts. You can only take notarial acts up to the amount that you were paid. So you got paid 90, all 90 is not subject to self-employment tax. You can't take the extra 30 and like roll it over into any other income monies or anything like that. It's all based on the individual signing that you're doing. Did that make sense? Did I explain that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that, yeah, that makes, I think it makes sense. Yeah. You can only take up to what you made. Even if you technically did more, you can
Yeah, it
only
can't
take up
roll.
to what you made
Yeah,
on the
it can't
signing.
roll
Perfect.
into anything else.
Yeah, perfect. And it's good to know that, like, do you know, so notary, you know that notary gadget separates it out. Where you talked about notary assist, I don't know. I only ever used notary gadget. That was my
I per
go-to.
right. I personally use Notary Gadget for my
Yeah.
notary business. I've
Mhm.
never used Notary Assist, but I
Okay.
know some people do. So I
Yeah.
try not to discriminate. I just tell
Yeah.
people,
Yeah. So
use whatever one.
if you're not using Notary Gadget, just make sure that your whatever app it is that you're using to keep track of all that stuff, make sure that it is doing that for you as well, that it's
Yeah,
separating that out for you because that is super helpful. You'll know
yeah,
what can go to self-employment tax and what doesn't. So that's
yeah.
just a good tip that if you're not using Notary Gadget, make sure your app does that for you as well.
And if you're doing any Ron's, it's $25
Mhm.
per notarial act, not 15. So
Mhm.
that's the part that is not subject to self-employment.
Okay, cool. And then we already talked about that. Are there any like red flags that the IRS looks for specifically in a notary business?
So it not just notary businesses, but anyone who is self-employed, right?
Mm-hmm.
A sole proprietor with these 1099s, right? This is a red flag for the IRS in general. Home office expenses that are out of bounds, like crazy. Somebody puts down they had $15,000 in a home office expense. Nobody, you didn't. But you just didn't. Um, uh, that's a big red flag. Um, if you have 20 1099s from different companies out there and you didn't keep good track of your own income on your side, and you just um I don't know how to explain this. Okay. So you have all these 1099s as backup, but remember you're going to make other money out there that you didn't get 1099s for. If you don't even claim the total amount of the 1099s, they're going to come after you. They're going to be like, this is the kind of business that you have. We know there's more money out there. And also, if you are using Square and taking payments, if you are getting payments in any other kind of a way, um, this is a credit card processor, you're going to get what's called a 1099K, and that shows how much money got processed and sent to you through that credit card processor. And that also gets sent to the IRS. So you have to kind of really keep track of all that backup. But anyone who's self-employed anymore, because everyone and their mother is self-employed in some way. If you go out and DoorDash, you're self-employed. You get a 1099. So the IRS is a little overrun with self-employed people anymore, but you can never, be too picky about your paperwork because you never want to be that one person who they went, oh, this is the one we're going after today. The IRS has very weird things like that they come up with. I did 130 tax returns for notaries last season, and I had one get a letter from the IRS saying, you owe us self-employment tax for this amount of money because you didn't fill this page out right. And I got on the phone with the IRS and I said, no, buddy, you don't know what you're doing. And I'd be happy to explain it to you. And I showed them right on the form what they were looking at. And they're like, oh, well, yeah. And I go, then why are you telling me that they owe you $3,000 in self-employment tax when none of their income was subject to, they only made like $8,000. It wasn't like they'd made a lot in the notary business. And I'm like, none of their income was subject to self-employment tax. And they're like, well, and the IRS told me, well, that's not true. And I go, want to bet? Let's go look up your tax code. And I had to show them their tax code that said notarial acts are not subject to self-employment tax.
That's
Like,
great.
there's always going to be a situation. You don't want it to be you. Just be really tight with your paperwork and keeping everything organized and in line. Yeah.
Perfect. That's
May
crazy.
I ask a
That's funny.
question?
Yeah.
May I ask a question, Amber?
Yeah.
Question. I am also documents preparation, and of course, I do apostille. So my question, do I have to file separate
It's all
document
one
preparation?
business, right?
Yes,
Then no, it's all one business.
it's
It
one
all
business.
falls under the umbrella of one business, is unless you have multiple EIN numbers and business names.
No, and for example, as if I work with DMV, I do also apostille. So it's also under one license because I actually apostille. I don't have to be documents preparation prep.
Correct.
I, so, but for DMV, I have to. But okay, all income I have to file together, right? As a
Correct.
notary and document preparation, it's same.
Are you, who's paying you for document preparation? People on the street?
I mean, yeah,
Like, okay, then yeah, it's all your one business. my business, I'm a bookkeeper, a tax preparer, a notary, a document preparer, and I do apostilles. I do all of those things, but I do it all under the umbrella of Amber Mailer, sole proprietor, blah. Like that's my business. So everything falls in under one thing. You don't have to have you don't have to file anything separately unless for some reason you are being paid separately. For example, if you have an EIN number and people are paying you under an EIN number and they're going to issue you a 1099 in that EIN number versus your social security number, and then you have 1099s coming in under your social, now you have to file two separate Schedule Cs because one is an EIN Schedule C and one is a social security number Schedule C. Always make sure that everything you do is under one number, whether it's an EIN or a social. Just one number, everything you do, anyone who's going to write you a 1099 or anywhere you're going to log your income, one business, one number.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you don't mind, may I just contact you after we finish? May I just contact you? And if you don't mind, if you're not so busy, could you please assist me this year with my taxes?
Yeah, no problem. And Nevada, you can give her my number. I don't care who
Okay.
has my phone number.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. We can, do you wanna put your number in the chat, Amber?
Oh yeah, I gotta figure out where to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, open the chat and put it in there and then everybody can have it. So if you need help with taxes or anything.
And any questions, just ask me.
Yeah.
I don't care if somebody wants to do their own taxes. I will answer your questions and help you the best that I can.
You're so nice. Perfect. There it is. Okay. Like systems and habits that you recommend for keeping clean records throughout the year, like you've touched on Notary Gadget, any of those types of apps are best for notaries, correct?
Yeah, Notary Gadget, Notary Assist. I really wouldn't tell anyone to use just an Excel spreadsheet unless you're just starting. Like
Mhm.
like it's December and you're just starting. I mean, it's okay. You're gonna have five things to put down. Um, but when it comes to everything always. I would not recommend QuickBooks for any individual person unless you're doing big time money, right? Like if you're doing five to $10,000 a month and you have a lot of expenses, um, QuickBooks is a great tool to have as a secondary to help you categorize and deal with all of your income and expenses, especially if you have multiple streams of income coming into the same business. And a ton of expenses. Like if you're doing apostille and you have to have a ton of recording fees and all this kind of stuff, QuickBooks is better at keeping track of expenses because it connects to a bank account or a credit card. So it just runs through everything and categorizes it in the right spots. The Notary Gadget does not do that. It does not connect to your account, but even I use QuickBooks for my business, right? But I use Notary Gadget for my notary business. And even though all that money still comes in and out of my business bank account, I keep Notary Gadget on the side to keep track of all my mileage and all my notarial acts. That's what I utilize it for because for me, that's the most important thing that I don't want to be burdened with trying to input individually into like my QuickBooks. Oh, this many notarial acts and this and that. It's just a pain. I would definitely always use a notary bookkeeping software.
Perfect. And then the other thing too for mileage, because we've talked about that a couple times. I personally, I liked Mile IQ. I don't know if you've ever used it, Amber, but it keeps track of like literally every time you drive. So for me, I appreciated that a little bit more than Notary Gadget because Notary Gadget only kept track of like your mileage to and like from a signing. But with Mile IQ, it does keep track of like literally every drive. So then it would send me a notification after I had been parked. Was
For
this business
smaller
or was it
business, but
personal?
yeah,
Yeah. And so you could keep track of your mileage for when you're out marketing, or if you have to go drop docs, or like to FedEx, or
correct.
so it did a better job of keeping track of exact mileage for me. And so I did appreciate that.
And it is a great app. My IQ is a great app. Um, when somebody's just starting out, I wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily recommend going out and adding another 12,
Expense.
15,
Yep.
$20 expense
Yep.
to have it. But if you are on the road and doing a ton of stuff all day, every day, I would get it
Mhm.
because while Notary Gadget does keep track of other things, um, only within a signing, right? So let's say I have 5 signings in one day. It'll keep track from my house to one signing to the next signing to the next signing. I can put FedEx in there to FedEx and then to the last signing and then to home. It'll keep track like that, but it doesn't keep track if you spend the whole day going out marketing. If because you're not putting addresses into it where you are going to do a signing. Um,
Mhm.
which you have to have a customer and put that in that way in order for Notary Gadget to register those kind of miles. So, Mile IQ is a great secondary app to have for your mileage.
Mhm. Perfect. And then so then I mean that's good enough for like IRS requirements, right? Like whatever Notary Gadget does is good enough for that.
It has an entire, because while you don't see it on the profit and loss, if you were to go to the mileage log, it would literally put every single thing in there.
Mhm.
And oh, one thing to know, because we're almost at the beginning of the year. Day one, January 1, go out, take a photograph of your odometer. Then at the end of the year on December 31, take a photograph of your odometer because whoever's doing your taxes, whether it's you or a tax professional, has to know the total number of miles you've driven all year and then the business number of miles. Those are the two numbers they need in order to do your taxes. So
Cool. Good to know. That's a good tip. I do that.
I do that too.
Try to do that.
And then I have to scroll through a year's worth of pictures to find
I
the
know to find
beginning
it,
odometer.
right? Okay, so then let's see, quarterly taxes and cash flow. So how do notaries know if they need to pay quarterly estimated taxes?
Out there in the business world, there's a lot of speaking about quarterly taxes, quarterly taxes, quarterly taxes. When people talk about it, there's two different things they're talking about. Filing quarterly taxes is something employers do. They file employer filings with the IRS stating I had this much in my payroll and I have paid you this much in quarterly taxes and they have to file their taxes quarterly. That's filing taxes. Then there is estimated tax payments, and that's where we live. So the self-employed should be paying estimated taxes. It's a quarterly basis. There's no filing involved, although you need to keep a record of the payment you have made because your tax person needs that. Okay. Um, but and quarters fall weird with the IRS. They don't fall every 3 months. They fall on weird days. Um, April 15th, June 30th, September 30th, and January 15th. They fall on weird days. Um, But you can make an payment to the IRS anytime that you want to within that year. If you make big money, right? If you are making netting 15 to thousand plus, if you're netting 15,000 plus, so after expenses, um, the IRS is going to say you owe them money. You don't want to owe them money at the end of the year if you don't have to, because then they're going to say you underpaid them all year. And so they're going to charge you uh, penalties. and interest on the money that you should have paid them that didn't pay them. The first $1,000 and the first year, they waive it, but after that, it becomes a problem. What I would recommend, and everybody's tax situation is different, right? Because it depends on if you file your taxes married, filing joint, head of household, single, if you have one dependent or 20, everybody's tax situation is different. So what I would tell you is always treat your notary business as though it's the only income in your house. Pretend there's no other income, pretend there's no dependents, pretend there's no nothing. And your net income, after all your expenses and mileage and all that, net income, I would pay the IRS 15 to 20%, depending on what that net income is, right? I would pay them 15 to 20% every quarter. So if you are netting, after everything is said and done, $2,000 a month, times 3 is 6 months, is $6,000, 15%, $900. You should pay the IRS that quarter for your estimated tax payment. Now, mind you, when you get to the end of the year and you go to do your taxes and you've made all these estimated payments, you might be getting a refund depending on what other things you have going on. Some people choose not to pay the estimated tax payments and they put it in a high yield savings account. Some people do other things with it. I don't know what they do with it. It's fine. I'm not your boss. I don't care what you do, but you should be making those estimated tax payments. Now, if that income is really your only income and there's no other income in your house, and whether you have a dependent or don't have a dependent, then you need to look at what is my standard tax deduction? Do I have a dependent? Do I get $2,000 in child tax credit? What do I get before you start making those payments? Because if that $900 a quarter is going to really hurt you, like hurt you to pay that $900, if your tax situation doesn't warrant you having a tax liability at the end of the year, then you don't have to pay it if you don't want to. But if you're making take small bites of the elephant, right? 300 a month, 300 a month, 300 a month into a separate account, savings account off to the side that you don't touch, then pay the IRS. I am married. We don't have any kids. All our kids are grown. My husband has an income. I have an income. Outside of my business, I have a day job too. So I have a lot going on. I pay the IRS $2,000 a quarter. Now, I happen to know, because I do know what my tax situation is, I happen to know that at the end of the year, I'm probably going to get about $500 back this year because I'm going to have overpaid them. So, but I would rather overpay slightly, not by a lot, because I don't believe in using the IRS as a savings account. But I would rather overpay slightly and get that back as a refund than underpay and have penalties and interest and a big bill in April. So that's how I feel about it personally.
Yeah, that's good advice. Good advice. Well, I feel like you just covered that. Strategies notaries can use to avoid being surprised by a large tax bill. I think we just talked about that. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then, yep, you talked about setting aside a fixed percentage of each signing for taxes. You're just covering all the basics. And then same for this. If you have different streams of income, fingerprinting, apostilles, RON, it's all going to get
It's all one business.
Yeah, it's all one business. So you don't have to really worry about that. And then are there different write-off rules for general notary work versus loan signings? I mean, you kind of talked about that with
Yeah.
no, I mean, it's the only difference is the
amount.
amount
Yeah.
of, what you can write off for your, okay. Audit ready. What steps can notaries take to make themselves audit ready all year long? I feel like you've kind of touched on that too. Just keep your receipts and, just make sure you have good,
Yeah. Don't get behind on your bookkeeping. Make bookkeeping one of your priorities. Set aside 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, a week at the bare minimum to keep your bookkeeping in order. Because when you start to get very, very busy and you're on the road and doing 4 to 5 signings a day and driving all over Kingdom Come and start at 6 a.m. and don't get home till 10 p.m. and you haven't eaten and you have kids screaming and dogs barking and it's really can like great on you to sit down and try to keep track of your bookkeeping, put in your signings every single day into your notary gadget or whatever, and make sure you have marked all your stuff. But I would say, no matter what, bare minimum once a week, get your bookkeeping done because you want that to be always something that is clean and ready to go. More notaries than you would believe do not hand me their stuff until April 15th. And it's not even clean. They want me to do a year's worth of bookkeeping on April 15th and still get their taxes done. I'm like, I can't. There's 100 of you who've handed me all the same thing. Sorry. I told you, get me your stuff in February. What do you want from me? Like,
Yeah.
can only, people can only do what they can do. So if you have your stuff clean at all times and all you have to do is when it's tax time, hand your tax preparer or for yourself, print out a profit and loss and a mileage that's it. That's all you need. And you're done.
Mhm.
So as
Right.
long as you have it all inputted. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you ever did get audited, what would be the first thing you would
Cry.
do?
I would cry and
Okay.
probably
And then,
stroke out. Start collecting all your documents for whatever time frame. And mind you, they can audit you up to 6 years back. We're not talking about yesterday. We're talking about like 6 years from now, they can come back and go, we want to see what you did in 26.
Mhm.
We want to audit you for 26. Um, so it's imperative to like keep all your receipts, whether it be electronically or in a filing cabinet, in a Pendaflex, whatever. Keep all your receipts, keep all your bookkeeping in a spot. Notary gadget, Notary Assist, an Excel spreadsheet, bare minimum. QuickBooks if you want to use QuickBooks, whatever. Having a bookkeeping software of some sort that can reference back to those years. Because, if you keep it in a notebook, which by the way, a lot of people do, uh, that notebook can get lost. It could get eaten. It could, a kid could take it and scribble all over it. Like, I don't know. At my house, it would get eaten. I have 3 ravenous dogs. So the just keep your stuff safe, keep it organized, keep it where you have it, because you need to keep all of your stuff 7 years for tax purposes, and they can audit you back 6 years. So uh,
Okay.
and I would run straight to all my files and print everything out and be like, here you go, tax man.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When it comes to keeping receipts, I know because, like you said, some of those was it thermal printing or whatever. A lot of
Thank
them.
you. That's the word. I couldn't think of the word.
So when it comes to that, so I put everything on. I have one credit card that I use everything for, and I put it all on a credit card to get my rewards and pay it off every month. If I print out my credit card receipts, if I don't have that other credit or other actual receipt, is the line item on the credit card receipt enough or no?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Fair enough.
Their credit card statements are great, right?
Mhm.
but a credit card statement is not a receipt.
Okay.
So start working on keeping those receipts. Keep them, get yourself a little inbox on your office, on your desk, put all your receipts there, and once a week, when you go to do your bookkeeping, scan them all in, plop them in a folder, you know, on your desktop, and just keep them in there. They don't even have to be sorted nice. Just stick them in there, you know? Um, and I mean, you don't have to like label it off, you know, office expense or this or whatever. I would label it everything like, I don't know, Office Depot, and then the date, and then that's what I would name it when I scanned it. If I scanned individually, which I don't. I scan an entire packet and I'm like, this date to this date. I just stick it in there. Um, and I stick it in my electronic folder on my desktop. That's where all my receipts live. I mean, credit card statements are nice, but they are not receipts. So you never know with the IRS.
Perfect. Well, I feel like a lot of I just went through the rest of our list of questions and we've pretty much covered everything. Do we
I
want to
now
open it
stop
up
talking.
to the floor? Does anybody else have questions for Amber before we wrap up for the day? She
Oh,
covered a lot.
I do, if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we
Um,
Yeah.
can.
okay, so being a dual agent, I just became a dual agent for California. So going forward with taxes, how would that differ?
What do you mean a dual agent?
Oh, well, I'm a notary in Nevada and now in California.
Dual
So if I
commission.
do acts within California, I have a sole proprietor based in Nevada. Would that mean I have to fill out two Schedule Cs going
So here,
forward?
for you, because California requires you to file income tax return on any work completed in the state of California. Anytime your feet are in California and you do any type of work for your business, I
Mhm.
would be keeping that separate as California income and California expenses,
Got it. Okay.
and not a different Schedule C, but now you have to file not just a 1040, you know, federal return with a Schedule C for your business, but now you also have to file a California state tax return.
Okay. Okay. That is good to know. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else?
That's it. I talked the whole
You
time, so I
you
answered all the
gave it
questions.
all. I mean, you answered everybody's questions without them even asking. That's amazing. That's how
I know.
great you are, Amber.
Psychic. No, I just I'm kind of booked. I tax season is my favorite time of year. So like I get really excited when I talk about
You're in the right
I
profession then.
I'm like the only one, but I get excited. I love to talk about taxes. I love to talk about bookkeeping. I and I want to help people who are out there who might be like struggling, or you know, not sure where to go or what to think, or overthinking, because a lot of people get really caught up in something and then they kind of get frozen because they start to overthink about everything.
Mhm.
It's really not overly complicated when you are going down the right path of thinking. You know,
Mhm.
it's really pretty
Mhm.
straightforward. Um,
Mhm.
but anybody's welcome to reach out to me. You can text me, you can call me. I sent Nevada the thing that I was showing everybody. She's going to send it out to everybody. My email address, my phone number on that as well. Anyone's welcome to reach out to me at any time. I'm a I'm an open book and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And thank you everybody for being on with us today. We're going to get cut off here in like 15 minutes anyway. So this was good timing. Thank you
Okay.
again, Amber. This was lovely. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
like she said, if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Amber. I can get you her contact information as well. So yeah, everybody enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you so much. We'll see
Thanks. Have
everybody
a great
next
day,
time.
guys.